Welcome back. The city of Mangaung has today failed to pass a budget. The beleaguered metro, which covers the greater Bloemfontein area, has been under administration since 2019, with residents long complaining about poor service delivery. Let's talk about what happened today with DA Councillor Dulandi Leech, who's joining us from Mangaung. A very good evening to you, ma'am. Grateful for your time. So what was actually wrong with the budget presented today by the mayor?
Well, good evening to everybody, and thank you for having me. Well, there are a few things that we have raised which are concerns. But before I begin, I must say that we did commend the officials. I have been serving on this committee for quite some time, and this is the first time that I can say that inputs made on the draft budget were actually considered, discussed in committee, and then adjusted. Unfortunately, obviously not all of them could be adjusted, but there are a few non-negotiables for us. The first one being the property rates. Now, what happened was during last year, we had an increase in our valuation roll, and the municipality further also increased the tariff. Now, according to legislation, it is not necessary that you do not have two increases per se, but it is according to the Kohta guidelines, and it has become a common courtesy throughout the municipalities. So our argument here was that there shouldn't be an increase on property rates, and that is one of the big non-negotiables for us. Property rates forms quite a large amount of one's account, and seeing that Mangaung residents are not receiving services at the moment, and if they do, it is very few. I can just make mention of that I struggled with a sewage problem in a resident's yard, and it took the municipality 6 months to repair the pipeline causing this sewage leak. So that's just an indication of what is going on in Mangaung. Then,
so if
yes.
rates don't go up, Dulandi, how does the Mangaung Metro then begin to recover financially? Because at the moment, it's struggling on all fronts.
Okay, let me get to that point. If you don't increase it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't get in any money for that line item. So they would still get in what they did during this financial year. It will be the same amount. And in the third quarter report, financial report, it was indicated that Mangaung Metro received more money from, or more revenue from property rates as what they initially expected. So it's not a case of there isn't money. It is a case of money is not being spent. Then we have to pay back the grants. Or money is being spent where it's not supposed to be. We had a 500 million rand rollover, and some of that money was spent on salaries and to pay our outstanding water account at Bloem Water. So, and that is something that is clearly not allowed. When you receive grants from National, it comes with specifications, and you need to spend those grants on what it has been specified for. So it's not a case that Mangaung will not receive money. It's just there won't be an increase in what they receive. In terms of the electricity tariff, Mangaung initially proposed a 7.99% increase, which is way below what NASHA's indicated. So we did comment on this, and Mangaung subsequently changed it to 15.1%. But it leaves a discrepancy within the budget, because if you go through it, it indicates an increase of 15.1% on tariffs, but it only indicates a 7.99% increase in revenue. So that is, if you work that out, it is 236 million rand difference. as to whether the revenue will increase by 7.9% or by 15.1%. So these are things that just don't talk to each other.
Right. So you've got a list of what you say are non-negotiables, yet what has been presented today contains things that you're very clearly against. What then is a way to resolve this? Is there a middle ground that would see the DA in Mangaung support any kind of budget at this stage?
Well, I think we're definitely on the right track. I can just make mention that water was initially indicated as 12.7%, and when we made inputs on this specific line item, the Metro did bring it down to 9%. So that is definitely moving in the right direction. In terms of what we feel with regards to the tariffs or non-negotiables are the property rights specifically, and then, of course, refuse. Refuse is an absolute disaster within Mangaung. Now, again, here you do not necessarily need the income from revenue through the raising of tariffs to acquire new fleet, etc., because this comes from government grants. The grants may be used to acquire new fleet, and what is happening here is it's also rather a case where people are trying to work overtime. So our overtime is extremely, extremely high. And if one can cut on that, then a person can also cut on the salary bill. And if you cut on the salary bill, which is obviously part of the expenditure, you can afford to have a budget where you have less of an income. So there are ways to move it around. So for us to say the non-negotiables will be property rates, the refuse, and then the extremely high salary bill when you go to expenditure. There, what has happened, there is an increase of 9.1% has been proposed. Now, this doesn't mean that current employees will receive a 9.1% increase on their salaries. It means that the expenditure in total will increase by 9.1%, and that leaves an amount of 2.45 billion rand. And what has been indicated here is that an additional 134 million rand has been budgeted for additional positions. Now, what the DA is saying is don't budget for additional positions, rather fill the vacant positions currently within the Metro, and it's already budgeted for those positions. Information which we received indicate that only 60% of the current positions within Mangaung is vacated. So that leaves you with a 40% a place where the positions must still get filled.
Yes, but what I'm trying to understand, Dulandi, is at what point would you be able to then say this is a compromise and this is what we're willing to do? We've heard you on the non-negotiables, but is there a middle ground?
There's absolutely a middle ground. If the mayor comes back to us and he indicates that they will cut on employee costs, they will where they've cut on the employee costs, they can afford a 0% increase in property rates, or then second price a much lesser increase, and that they will also, during next year's budget, also have a much lower percentage increase on property rates. And then on refuse removal, they must come with a very clear plan of how they will fix this dilemma, because one cannot request of residents to pay for an increase on a service which they are not even receiving. Currently in Mangaung, your refuse gets removed once a month if you are lucky. So most people here are paying the private sector to remove their refuse. One cannot expect of them to pay an increase on that specific line item.
Dulandi,
Yes.
Dulandi Leech, thank you so much for your time. We are out of time. Thank you so much for speaking to us from Mangaung tonight.